Hello, I'm Rebecca de Mendonça. Welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to show you how I protect and store my soft pastel work, and also how I post pieces that are small enough to go in the post and they're not framed. Now, soft pastels are wonderful to use, but they are vulnerable unless they're covered. I don't fix my work because I just don't like the fact that fixing seems to change some of my tonal values. So what I do is I make sure that it's covered, but that the cover can't be pulled across it or moved at all. So I've got a little piece here that I've sold and I'm just wrapping up today to post, and I just want to make sure it's going to get there as safe as possible. And I've just got a piece here to show you that even with bigger pieces I can wrap them in the way I'm going to do this one, which is using cellophane, which means I can still see the piece, which is great if I'm doing any teaching, any workshops, and I've just taped it at the four corners so that it can't be moved across. I'll probably, if I'm going to transport this one, tape it top and bottom again. Now, some of the pastel does come off onto the cellophane, but as long as it is lifted off really carefully when it's going to go in a frame, then that shouldn't be a problem. It's only recently that I've started selling pieces that are unframed and unmounted, so I've been developing a way of making it work as well as possible. So that's what I'm going to share with you. Now, what I need to make clear to the framer, or whoever this is going to, is exactly where the picture needs to be framed and mounted. So what I've done is I've done little crop marks here and here on all the corners, but none of that will be seen when the piece is actually mounted, because they'll all be underneath the mount. If you'd like to find out more about the way I use pastels, or this sort of practical information about storing or framing them, there's a lot to see in my book, Pastels for the Absolute Beginner, which was published by Search Press last year, and you can find out more information about this, and you can also buy it from my website. So do take a look and let me know if you have any questions. So I think that's enough talking, let's get started. Right, so here we are. I've got my roller cellophane and I've got a cutting board that I'm working on. Very old cutting board that's had quite a life. So I'm just laying that flat on there. I'm now going to get my painting. So here's my painting, which I've banged on the floor a little bit, and I'm now going to turn it so that it's facing downwards, and I'm just going to lay that edge very, very carefully up against the top edge there. So only the edge is touching and the painting is not touching, and only when the edge is against it do I just very gently drop it down. Okay, now I don't want that to move, so I've got some tape. Just going to take a bit of sellotape and carefully lift that and just tape that corner. And I'm going to do another bit around here. It has moved slightly, but I'm going to see if I can just tape it so that it stays in the right place. Now, I've got my one edge taped. And you'll see this is easier to do with card. I'm working on a primed card here, but you can do it with paper as well. Now, holding it very firmly with this hand, because I don't want any of that moving underneath. I've got a scalpel, or you could use any kind of craft knife, and I just very gently run it along that edge. And again, it's easy with card because your edge is kind of like your straight edge as well, but if you were doing this with paper, it might be a good idea to use a straight edge as a guide. So I'm going to come round this way to do that one, and I'm going to show you what I mean by using a straight edge. You could just lay that against it very carefully there. The thing about cutting with a knife is that you don't want to put a lot of pressure on, because that can cause you to slip. It's better to do two gentle cuts than one really hard one. And then I should be able to just gently move the cellophane away. So now I've got this corner that I want to stick, and you'll notice that those I put both the same way, so that if anybody wanted to just lift that up, it would kind of hinge. So I'm going to put this one opposite, and again I'm going to carefully reach underneath it and tape it, and then keep holding it in place till that one goes on. And now I've got one last edge to trim off. Just a little cut, pop that in the bin. And there, I've now got my painting covered with something that isn't going to move, and it also takes on a slightly different look as if it's behind glass, so that's quite useful when you're actually framing it. Now this I could just store in one of my folders where I keep all of my work. I just store it all vertically, or of course this one is about to go away and be posted. Now I don't want to have, I want a nice smooth cover to go on the front of that, so that it's not pushed, it's not got corrugated slightly ribbed cardboard against it, in case that does leave any kind of textured marks on it. So what I've got here is just another piece of mount card, which I've cut to the right size, and I'm going to put that on, and I'm going to give that a little hinge as well. So this might all seem a little bit OTT, but I think if you value your work, and the person who's buying your work is valuing it, they will really be glad that you've taken all of this trouble to take care of it. I also include a note on caring for an original pastel painting, and a note to the framer just saying, please don't fix this, keep it wrapped until you're going to put it in the frame. And also how the best way is to lift it off the wrapping, which is to gently cut each corner of tape, which I do by putting it facing down, and then carefully getting my scalpel or a craft knife just to slit that bit of tape, and then to very gently lift it off. Now it's time to get it ready for posting. This card came in a really big sheet, which again I measured to size and cut with my scalpel, and the reason I measured it to size was because I wanted to make sure that it fitted within the medium parcel requirements for the Royal Mail. When I say rigid cardboard, you can actually see, if I get this bit, it isn't completely rigid. So there's this on its own is not enough to ensure that the picture doesn't get bent. So what I've done, because it's got ridges in it, hoping that you can, this is all getting picked up by the camera. So what I've got, if you can, I don't know whether you can see, but this one has got the ridges going that way, and then I've cut another one that has the ridges going the other way. And although they are quite vulnerable on their own, if you put them together, you have a much sturdier piece of card. So I now have put the picture on the first one, and I'm making a sandwich. I've got a piece of tape underneath that, and I just want to put that along there so that it runs straight. Just put another line across there. So there's my folder. There's my piece in it with my paperwork. I just need to tape it up around the sides now. So there we have it. I've marked those 3 edges where I've got the shiny tape, because all the person needs to do when they receive it is slit along there on 3 sides, and then it'll open as a folder that they can keep the picture in. So I hope you found that useful. I'm off to the post office now, and take a look at my website if you want to find out more information about pastels.